Problem with me was I could play my Swiss Army triplets about this fast. My double stroke rolls, because I was thinking of them as two separate things. Once I started breaking that down and going, okay, a Swiss Army triplet is actually just doubles. It's a little bit of a mental shift, and this actually happened for me. It instantly upped my Swiss Army triplet speed. So I went from here. What is up? Welcome back to the Drum Show podcast. I want to talk about technique today, and I want to do some demonstrations. So if you're watching this on the audio only podcast, you may not get all of this, but it's still really great to listen along because there's some really great tidbits here. You're just not going to get the visuals that I'm going to give as well. You can find the podcast on YouTube now, and so you can just look up the Drum Show podcast, and you should be able to find it there on YouTube. But I wanted to give some demonstration and help you understand why technique is so important and why I stress it so much. It's not because we want to be a strict, rigid player. It's not because I'm some kind of rule follower. It really is because if we look at the internal basic elements of the stickings that we play, the rudiments that we learn, those types of things, we can begin to see how these basic techniques we learn are almost embedded in there, and I like to start with just a few simple ones. So, whenever I'm teaching technique, we have a free stroke or the Gladstone stroke or the free stroke, where essentially we're kind of bouncing the stick back like this. It's a big rebound stroke, right? So I teach this, and in and of itself, this doesn't seem like that big of a deal, although it's vastly different than this. Right? Where this is, I'm hitting, and you can even hear the difference in the stick reverberating. I'm hitting the drum, and there's no rebound. Whereas here, the stick is rebounding by itself and resetting itself. Here, I'm hitting, and then I'm picking the stick up. Here, I'm hitting, and the stick is already back, and I'm just kind of going back to meet it. My hand is just very much doing this motion. So that's kind of the premise of that continual type of a stroke. And at its very basic components, it looks like, what could we do with that? Well, we can play obviously on the ride cymbal, all of those things. But if we take a basic, let's take a flam, for instance, which is a grace note followed by a primary note, right? And it's supposed to be one sound. So the slower we get, the grace note doesn't get farther from the primary note. It's simply slower, right? So they stay the same distance apart. Now, why does that technique have anything to do with that rudiment? Well, whenever we're playing this, if we played a same-handed flam, right? If I'm playing a same-handed flam, and then I take the left hand away, let's say we're playing a right-hand lead flam, and I take the left hand away, you'll see that my hand is doing the same technique or motion I was just showing you. Now, the left hand is too, to a smaller extent. It's just not allowing it to rebound right back. So that one technique right there, and I've learned to do flams much better. Now here's a really cool thing. If I can begin to learn to do that technique, and I can do it that fast, well then I should be able to play my flams that fast once I work things out. Because remember, a flam, same-handed flam, is only this. So by making a little bit of a mental shift and not thinking of it maybe not as just a flam, but thinking of it as that technique I was working on just applied in real life, for me those mental shifts can take me a long way. Now, let me demonstrate how a small mental shift really helped me have some breakthroughs on certain rudiments. Let's take the Swiss Army triplet. I've demonstrated this one before, but also it can be applied to other rudiments. But let's just take this. So let's say we have a double, right? If I'm playing double stroke rolls this fast, and I take my left hand off, well, that leaves me with just diddles there on my right hand. Now, moving to a Swiss Army triplet. A Swiss Army triplet is if we're starting on the right hand, it's a right-handed flam, right-left. And for many, many years, that's how I thought of that rudiment. Right-handed flam, right-left. Right-handed flam, right-left. Right-handed flam, right-left. I never thought of it as double strokes. But if we get to playing that rudiment, and we take away the left hand, I'm playing the left hand on my leg, you can see that it's just doubles. Now let me take away the right hand. The left hand is just doubles too, isn't it? Now, problem with me was I could play my Swiss Army triplets about this fast. That was about where I was with them. My double stroke rolls, I could play that fast because I was thinking of them as two separate things. But whenever I one day was sitting there, it was whenever I had my, air quote studio in my garage. That was where I first started teaching online, was just in my garage. It was extremely hot in the summer, by the way, here in Tennessee. And once I started breaking that down and going, okay, so a Swiss Army triplet is actually just doubles. And what happens is when we play that double stroke roll, right, right, left, left, we get a smooth double stroke roll. You can hear my watch clicking for all y'all just listening. If I take and I overlap those just a little bit, let's say I'm playing doubles, and I start to overlap them just a little bit, I get a Swiss Army triplet. And that's just moving the timing The sticks are doing the same thing. A great teacher named Klaus Hessler, he talks about this. It's called expanding and contracting rudiments, right? So if we start with a double stroke roll and then we, if you will, contract it slightly or overlap the strokes, you get a Swiss Army triplet. And if you go either further, you get a single unison single, so a right unison left. We're still playing doubles in each hand, though. They're just spaced differently when it comes to where we're putting them in the hand. And if we kept expanding that one out the other side, you would start with a right-handed double stroke roll, go to a right-handed Swiss Army triplet, go to a right unison left, and then you would come out the other side with a left-handed Swiss Army triplet and into a left-handed double stroke roll. And that comes from just knowing your doubles, right? So if I can play a double stroke roll this fast, I should be able to play a Swiss Army triplet almost that fast because it's just doubles. It's a little bit of a mental shift, and this actually happened for me. It instantly upped my Swiss Army triplet speed. So I went from here, where I was thinking of it as a right-handed flam, right-left, to here. And it all was a mental shift that it's just doubles. They're just double strokes. And I'm going to kind of go through several of these in no particular order. This podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15, I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better, and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years. We started running drum camps last year in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out. They've been just blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. A community that was started online and has been going online strong now for over 12 years. I'd love to have you be a part of it. And I could do this for a very long time. We could go through this a very long time, and I could demonstrate these types of things. Let's go back to flams. But instead of same-handed flams, I'm using these because they're some of the most basic rudiments. Instead of same-handed flams, we're doing alternating flams. So right-handed flam, left-handed flam. Now, if I take and put my left hand on my leg, well, that's a downstroke and a tap. And if I go back to my, technique vault, what that looks like in my technique vault and what I teach my students is, once we've learned a molar stroke, which is a whipping motion, right? It's a whipping motion that we use to get a lot of power. What we can do is, that downstroke, there's always a motion, but whenever we hinge our wrist to come up, there's also another motion that happens unintentionally. It's just part of it. So when we hinge our wrist to come up, there's another stroke that can happen there. Down, up, down, up. And that happens naturally by me just breaking at the wrist, if you will. When I come down, I leave my stick down, and whenever my wrist breaks and my hand goes down to come up, look at that. I've got another stroke that can happen. It's like a 2-for-1. And I'm not doing anything. Used to, I would have been downstroke and then tap. And all of them would have been downs. Down, 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 down. But now it's down, up. And down for me is not such a traditional method. Down for me is stick tip is up, wrist is down. Up for me means wrist is up, stick tip is down. And again, if you're not watching the video portion of this, I encourage you, go look it up later on YouTube to see what's going on, specifically in how I'm demonstrating it. As well, I've got in the members area on my online drum school, there's a link to that and more information in the podcast description. It's been going almost 14 years now. Tens of thousands of students have gone through it. We live stream every week to students and do Q&As, over 70 courses. Like, it is all encompassing. I have Hand Technique 101 and Hand Technique 102. In Hand Technique 101, I talk about this one. So I call this the molar pumping motion, because once we can get that downstroke, that molar whipping motion down, and we can come up, it very much starts looking like a pumping motion in our wrist. And all we have to do at that point is condense the motion. And we've got, Jeff Porcaro on the hi-hat with those fast 16th notes. Right? Now, the other thing we can do, you're like, Steven, you started off on alternating flams. I told you this was going to be a meandering conversation because this is the best way for me to communicate this to you. Whenever we're doing alternating flams, so right flam, left flam, and I take my left hand and I put it on my leg, you'll notice that the motion of my right hand is exactly the same as it was in that molar pumping motion. Now let's take the right hand and put it on my leg and play with the left hand, right? Look at that. It's the exact same motion. So if we interlace those two motions, just like with the Swiss Army triplet, once we start to interlace them, before it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. But when we interlace them, it becomes alternating flams. I can play doubles, or, now that's important because if I know with one hand I can do this in that technique, and with my left hand I can do that. I should have took my watch off before this. It's jangling, clangling. If I know I can do that, then watch this. My alternating flams, it's just me working out the coordination, if you will. Because it took me from thinking right-handed flam, left-handed flam, right-handed, to thinking down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. But in my left hand, I'm thinking up, down, up, down, up, down. Right hand down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Up, down, up, down, up, down in my left hand. And by doing that, all I'm playing is that. And that's an example of a molar pumping type motion. You can also use that to great effect on your hi-hat, and you'll see cats like Jeff Beccaro and Steve Gadd and several others using that pumping motion along with some finger control to really help them play those types of grooves. All right, so let's get into more like rebound strokes. Let's get into a 3-stroke molar. So we have a down, rebound, up, down, rebound, up, down, rebound, up, down, rebound, up. When we're doing that, triple it, 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 triple. What we have is that same motion we were just doing, that molar pumping, so it's down, but now we've allowed a rebound, and then, so we have a down, a rebound, and then an up. Down, rebound, up, down, rebound, up, down, rebound, up. And that's a molar 3-stroke. Now, this really helps with patterns like if we're playing a sextuplet pattern, a single stroke roll with some accents. Here's what the right hand's doing. Look what the left hand's doing. They're both doing that 3-stroke. If we offset them, all of a sudden we have this fast single stroke roll. Now, if I offset them just a little bit, so I allow the right hand to play, and then the rebound stroke, and then I come in just at a different spot, we now have varied accents. Which sounds like a completely different pattern, but it's not. Look what the right hand's doing. That's a left hand. It's the same technique. So we've taken this one technique, and it's like, oh wow. We can start the left hand on a different spot, and it's... So we have a different accent pattern. And that becomes very, very useful whenever we're playing rolls with accents, especially around the toms, those types of things. We can also take that same 3-stroke notion and go into, let's say, the flam tap. If we look at the flam tap, I used to think of it as right-handed flam right, and then left-handed flam left. Flam right, flam left, flam right, flam left. That's what I always thought. The flam was its own thing, and I really wasn't thinking about individual stickings. But again, take your hand and put it on your leg and play the same pattern. It's that same 3-note pattern. Take the right hand, put it on your leg, and play the left hand on the pad. It's the same 3-note pattern. So now, I can play my flam taps much easier because it's a mental shift. I'm no longer thinking flam right, flam left, that type of a thing. All I'm thinking is that 3-note pattern in my hand and the placement of those. That also tells me that if I can play that 3-note pattern that fast in both hands, then my flam tap speed should automatically come up. Because it's just that 3-note stroke. Now we can take the motion expanding from that and going a little bit, I guess a little bit more esoteric. We can go from there, and Klaus Hessler hit me to this. Fantastic teacher. Talked to him several times. And as well, I'm going to put in the show notes here, I'm going to put some free download links for you all if you want them. 30 Days of Better Doubles, 30 Days of Better Singles. We'll put those down in the show notes as well. So those are free. You just go follow the links. You can have those since we're talking about double strokes and single strokes and all that. If you want a comprehensive hand technique program, I would encourage you to join my online drum school, and I can definitely help you with that. So if we take that same motion, that's that 3-stroke motion. Apply it to the paradiddle. Some of you may be like, I don't really see how that applies to the paradiddle because it's got a double in it. Yes, it does. But the motion of my hands, watch the motion as I'm playing the paradiddle. You'll notice that the motion of my hands is exactly the same. Right? So when I'm playing this pattern, if I will just on the second right hand, I believe it is, If I diddle that one, just kind of out of time. So I'll start with the 3-note rhythm. Smooth that out. But watch my hands. Watch the motion of my hands. They don't change. The motion of my hands is the same. So when it comes to playing a paradiddle, for instance, it's the same motion as that 3-stroke pattern. And one other real quick one, let's say you're learning finger technique, right? Well, I know that if we're working on French position finger control, and you can play it that fast in your right hand, and you can play it that fast in your left hand, I know that you're just seconds away from interlacing those hands and being able to play a single stroke roll. Because that's all that is in that hand. Same in the left hand. Woo, that was dirty. So I can go on and on about this technique stuff and how it applies to everything we play. But that's just kind of a short snippet. I wanted to encourage you, if you're working on your technique, that's oftentimes not a super fun part of our practice time, but it's a really relevant part of your practice time. And if you will dig in and do the work, I promise you it will pay off huge in your playing.